protesters. Maybe you have some thoughts on any of that you'd like to share. We had a massive hailstorm. I love talking about weather, so if you want to share storm stories, I'm okay with that. If you have any thoughts on just about anything you want to share, this is your platform. Call us at 785-242-1220 and weigh in. It doesn't have to be what I'm talking about. I'll put my topic aside and change directions with your call. After all, the show is called, it's not called My Town. It's called Your Town. So it's your town. I'm just here to provide commentary and, from what I can tell, just generally irritate people. So that seems to be the effect I have. But at any rate, until calls come in, I'll go back to the Braves softball team for a moment, and we'll talk some sports in this and then kind of segue into another topic, as I usually do, as I kind of wander through my thought process here on the show. But the Braves, again, they went to the NAIA Softball World Series for just the fourth time in program history last week and early this week. And they took a trip down to Florida. And I can tell you from talking to the NAIA officials, other broadcasters there was no one really expecting the Braves to do much going in. They were the 10 seed out of 10 teams, generally considered lucky to be there after getting through a weather-shortened opening round in which they beat the two top-ranked teams at their opening round site. There are 10 opening round sites with 4 teams apiece, and each winner of each opening round goes to the World Series. So they didn't end up having to go through a championship game because of the weather issues. Then, having beaten 2 teams ranked 10th and 13th in the NAIA and in that opening round up in Iowa, they go down to Florida. They beat the 19th ranked team in their first game. Then they play the overall 2 seed in the World Series, Columbia, and they take them to extra innings. They ultimately fell just 2-1 in 8 innings. And then in their third game, they lose a competitive game to another top 10 team in Davenport 4-0. So they really surprised everyone with just how talented and competitive they were, despite the record dropping them all the way down to the 10 seed. This was a Braves team that was first in program history to win 40 games, the first to win a World Series game. Senior pitcher Molly Morgan from down the road in Paola became the first Brave to be named to an NAIA All-World Series team, so just a really impressive year. Now, you might be asking, I hope you're not, but you might be asking why that should matter to you if you're not directly affiliated with the university in any way. Since last fall, I've covered all Brave sports other than football. Bob Johnson continued to cover football for KOFO, but I covered volleyball, men's and women's soccer, men's and women's basketball, baseball, and softball. And I have to say it opened my eyes in a few ways. I'm a lifelong sports fan. As a kid, I loved really all sports, but baseball was a big passion of mine growing up. We only had a handful of cable channels, but 2 of them were WGN and TBS, who at that time showed Cubs and Braves games. And this was back before every Royals game was on TV, back before basically every professional sporting event was televised in one way or another. And I didn't even like the Cubs or the Braves, but I'd still watch just because it was a chance to watch baseball. My parents are both Nebraska alums, so Saturdays in the fall were practically holidays during college football season. I spent my days playing basketball, touch football, soccer, baseball with other kids in my neighborhood. And between school teams and rec league teams, I played just about every sport I could year-round through high school. Played in rec leagues and at the gym every day, practically every day when I was in college at KU. I'll still even play sports games on my Xbox, so I'm a bit of a sports addict. And even so, even with all my experience in playing and watching sports, I still feel like my team, or excuse me, my experience following the teams around and my experience in traveling with an NAIA school and really covering them opened my eyes in a few different ways. So we're coming up on the break here. So when we come back, I'll talk a little about how that experience changed me in some ways and how I interact with sports, and then kind of take it on from there to maybe a more broad point about Ottawa and the surrounding area. So we'll get to that when we come back. You're listening to Your Town on KOFO.
Your Town with David Potter returns on KOFO after this. Did you know Dr. Hale's office is a full-service dental care center? If you have stained, cracked, or missing teeth, Dr. Hale can treat these and other dental concerns and bring confidence back to your smile. For quality care in a relaxed environment, call Dr. Hale's office, 242-1800.
If you have been in an accident, tell your insurance company you want your repairs done at CarStar Ottawa. We can arrange for your tow, your car rental, and deal with your insurance company all with one phone call. No need for multiple estimates and worry. Call 242-8916. Relax. We'll take it from here.
The next general consignment auction at the Eastern Kansas Auction Barns coming up June 24th. Consign your items today by calling Daryl Stottlemyre. Now, don't worry about harmful outside elements because the Eastern Kansas Auction Barn is a large indoor climate control facility. Consignments can be anything: farm implements, lawn and garden equipment, tools, furniture, and collectibles. If you have something to sell, call Daryl Stottlemyre at 785-241-0208. And we'll see you June 24th at the Eastern Kansas Auction Barn auction.
Power Service Diesel Additives deliver vital protection and maximum performance for your diesel. Your diesel requires specific technology. Here's what a first-time user had to say.
This is Dale Harris out of Roy, New Mexico. I was in Pueblo yesterday and having one of our trucks worked on. The man suggested I use some of your diesel clean on the way home, and my God, you talk about giving some power back to that old truck. It did.
Power Service. It's just for diesels. Find Power Service Diesel Clean at auto and farm and ranch stores nationwide.
You can't get any fresher than your own vegetable garden. Right now at the Home Depot, 1 gallon Bonnie Veggies and Herbs are not only as fresh as you can get, but you can get 3 of them for only $12. That's not only thinking green, that's saving green. So pass the salad and stop and smell the rosemary. It's easy when you fill your cart with 1 gallon Bonnie Veggies and Herbs, 3 for just $12. Now at the Home Depot, more saving, more doing. Valid through July 12th, Continental U.S. only. See store for details.
You're listening to Your Town with David Potter on 103.7 FM and 1220 KOFO.
Using Groupon, you can save a ton of money on what you do every day, like painting classes, concerts, escape room games, and more. Now, it's not literally a ton of money. That would be 2,000 pounds of money. It's more like saving up to $100 a week. Going bowling? Check Groupon. Taking the kids to the trampoline place? Check Groupon. Headed to museums, water slides, and tons of other nearby things to do? Use the top-rated Groupon app to save up to $100 a week on what you do every day. Download the app and save. Groupon.
For life's aches and pains, choose Blue Emu Continuous Pain Relief Spray. It works fast, and it's easy to use. Designed to work odor-free in all those remote areas. It works here. It's odor-free here. It works here. Blue Emu Continuous Pain Relief Spray. Fast-acting, easy-to-use, odor-free pain relief for all those remote areas. Available at Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, and other fine retailers.
Is your weekend shaping up to be a little uneventful? Well, don't let this weekend slip away from you and visit the Things to Do category on Groupon. You can find endless activities to make this weekend a little different from the last. Find your fun thing to do Friday by visiting Groupon.com or the Groupon app. ABC's Daily Deal, sponsored by Groupon. Download the Groupon app and save up to $100 a week on what you do every day. Available on the Apple and Google Play App Store or visit Groupon.com.
KOFO is looking to fill the position of board operator. Some responsibilities include operating control board for studio and remote programming, monitoring on-air programming sound, execute score updates on the KOFO website, the ability to work without close supervision, and flexibility in work schedule. Email your resume to kofo@kofo.com, mail to P.O. Box 16, Ottawa, Kansas 66067, or stop by our KOFO studio at 320 East Radio Road. No phone calls, please. KOFO is an equal opportunity employer.
It's Your Town with David Potter on 103.7 FM and 1220 KOFO.
And welcome back to Your Town. Again, I am David Potter here on KOFO 1220 and 103.7 FM. If you want to call and weigh in, whether it's on what I'm talking about or something entirely different, feel free. Number is 785-242-1220. And before the break, I was just kind of going through the Braves softball season and my background just as a sports fan. And just to kind of pick up where I left off, and the whole show won't be about sports. I'm working to something else, but it just takes me a while to get there. I've never been known for being brief when I'm talking. That's the nice thing about this show is I just basically get to stand behind a microphone and ramble for about 40 minutes once a week. So it's good for me. It takes some of the pressure off of my friends and family for having to listen to me ramble at them for hours on end. So, but getting back to the subject at hand, basically I'm a sports addict, and still, even though I've lived here in Ottawa for about 11 years, even though for the last 2 years I was working on another degree at university, and I could identify as a Brave, I still didn't really follow Brave sports. And when I started taking classes there, I'd check on the internet to see how teams were doing, but that was really it. And it was because it was the NAIA, and I'd spent my college days the first time around watching KU basketball and KU football, and that was when Mark Mangino actually had some good football teams at KU, not like the last few years. But I'd grown up watching Nebraska football. I've watched pro sports all my life, so my thought process was just, why would I watch lower-level sports? But still being a lifelong sports guy, when the opportunity to put my name into the hat to do play-by-play here on KOFO, I jumped at the chance because it was an opportunity to be a sports broadcaster, something I'd really dreamt of since childhood. So I really didn't care if it was college or pro or direct league T-ball. If I had the chance to do play-by-play, I was going to take it. So this is kind of where I'll get into the lessons I've learned in my year of covering OU sports, and I hope that some of you out there can maybe develop some of the same type of appreciation that I have. And the first thing I've learned, I guess maybe my 2 points here kind of go hand in hand, but the first thing is that the level of play doesn't really have to factor in to how much fun you can have at a sporting event or in following a team. What matters is the investment on your end. If you're invested in some way in the team that you're watching, whether they represent your school or your town, or again, if you have a child playing there or had a child playing there, if you're connected to them in some way, it's going to be a good experience watching them. Now, obviously, it's harder to have fun when supporting a bad team than a good one. That's why for just about every sports team on the planet, attendance goes down when the team is really struggling, goes back up when they're doing really well. That's just human nature. You're less likely to spend your time and money to go watch a team you like lose a game. But factoring that out, the level of competition, whether it's NCAA Division I or NAIA, it doesn't really matter. It's what you have emotionally invested in, what the team represents to you as a fan. For some people, again, that's because it's the university they went to, the university they sent their kids to, or just because it has, in some cases, just because it has the name of their town on the jersey. And the other part of this is that I'll admit I'm one of those guys who had just never really followed women's sports before. When one of KU's women's team made a tournament or was doing really well, KU's recent volleyball teams come to mind, then I'd start paying attention. But other than that, I really didn't pay much attention. And it's a similar line of thinking. It's, just that idea that, well, it's just not as good. There isn't as much athleticism. They aren't as fast. They aren't as strong. And yes, the fact is, for the most part, there isn't dunking in women's basketball, and there aren't 400-foot home runs in softball, and maybe you don't see soccer players who can curl in a shot from 45 yards out. But what covering women's volleyball, soccer, basketball, and softball teams has taught me this year is that none of that really makes a bit of difference if you care about the team. And again, it goes back to what I was saying about what level of athletics they're playing in. What level you're watching it, it's really the same point. None of that matters if the team means something to you. And I know it's not just me who feels that way, because you can look at the crowds at high school games. Even small high schools, some of them might not have a single player who's going to get a scholarship to play college sports anywhere. And depending where you are, you can see huge crowds. I had the opportunity to cover KOFO's Game of the Week in local high school football and basketball this year, and it took me to some games I never would have attended otherwise. And I was amazed when I went to a football game at Linden, which is a town of about 1,000 people, and not only were the bleachers full, but there was a huge crowd of people off to the side, people of all ages. Some were students there, some were adults, some were little kids. You had kids throwing football back and forth, just playing catch to pass the time, just like you would see at some major sporting events, out in the parking lot or wherever. It was a major event, and everyone was decked out in orange to support the school. And I don't know the actual count, but it felt like half the town was there, and they were invested in the game, and more so than the game, the team. Wellsville football games were similar. Tons of people in blue, and since there are less than 40 kids on the roster there, I know it wasn't just parents there. There were people there who feel like, whether it's the school or the team or both, it represents Wellsville, and Wellsville is where they live, and in some cases have lived their whole life or for a majority of their life. And so then that school represents them in a way. It kind of puts a face on the town that they identify with, and it doesn't hurt that it was a really good team. Same with Linden last year, but that wasn't the only reason you had a ton of people flocking to the field Friday nights. It means something to them. But when you look at Ottawa high school football went to state and even hosted 2 football games at state, and the bleachers weren't even full. And I went to countless OU Brave sporting events this year, and the stands weren't close to full. And I recognize most of the people who were there for the most part. It was mostly parents of players and students, other OU athletes who are there to support their fellow athletes. And that's a shame because there were some great moments in Ottawa sports this year. Cyclone baseball just made a run to the 4A championship game. Football went a couple games deep in the state tournament. Basketball just narrowly missed state, but Braves women's soccer went to the NAIA tournament in the fall. Volleyball made it to the opening round of nationals. Both those teams won the regular season and the KCAC tournament titles. The men's basketball team went on a nice winning streak where they're playing some great ball. The women's team, for a window of time, had a shot at making their way maybe into the top 2 of the conference standings and having a shot at the nationals. That didn't work out, but they were extremely competitive across the season. Lacrosse isn't a real big deal in the U.S. It's gathering in momentum, but the women's lacrosse team went to nationals at the NAIA level, and softball, again, was just one of 10 teams to make the NAIA World Series and got their first win in program history. But it feels like in town, just listening to what people are talking about and what people are staying updated on, that none of that's really a subject to interest to anyone who isn't an alum or a parent of a current player or former player. And honestly, I've met a lot of alums who don't seem to be real interested. They live down the street from campus and still don't go to see games. And I should acknowledge that it's easier for a Linden or a Wellsville. It's easier for 1,000 or 2,000 people to really rally around something. In smaller towns where on a Friday or a Saturday, those games may be the only things to go see or do in a 15-mile radius, it's tougher for a town Ottawa's size. It's about 13,000 people. You get more things going on, slightly more diverse population, more separate interests, more places to go. And it gets harder for the community to coalesce around something like a sporting event. And here's where I'll kind of jump off the sports aspect and kind of jump to the more of the big picture. Though I'm willing to say it's harder for Ottawa being bigger than a Linden or a Wellsville. Those are just the 2 examples from my experience this fall. To group together and really support things, I don't feel like it should be as hard as it seems that it is. And I'm not just talking about sports. Sports are representative of all this, but my larger point is that it's not just about showing up at football games. My larger point is that Ottawa suffers from a lack of identity. And I haven't announced this on the show, but I'm actually headed out of the area. I'll be moving out of the state later on this summer. You may have heard advertisements for my job as morning news anchor on the station. No, that wasn't Brad's subtle way of telling me I'm no longer needed here. I am up and going elsewhere, so I don't have, I guess, a lasting stake in what goes on in Ottawa from here on out, other than wishing it in the surrounding area nothing but the best. I'm not saying goodbye right now. I still got a little time left, but it won't be my home for the long term. But for the majority of you listening out there, it's going to be your home for at least probably years to come, and for some of you, maybe even the rest of your life. And so I guess I'm speaking right now not as much as an Ottawan, but as more of an objective observer. I grew up in the KC Metro in the suburbs, and I spent my college years in Lawrence, and now I've lived in Ottawa for about 11 years, so it's about a third of my life. And maybe you feel like that means I don't fully get Ottawa, or that I'm not a true Ottawan or whatever. I don't even know what the official term is. I guess it's Ottawa. But I feel like it allows me to look at the town and things going on in and around it with maybe a little more objectivity. In larger towns and big cities can have identities and can build town pride. You know, I know people who would almost be willing to fight you if you tried to tell them that anything other than Kansas City barbecue is better than Kansas City style. I've been in people's houses. I've been in plenty of businesses with pictures and paintings of landmarks in Kansas City and other places, the KC Skyline, Kauffman Stadium, even Mass Street in Lawrence, the Plaza Lights, Mass Street at Christmas time when they have all the Christmas lights strung up on all the trees all the way up and down Mass Street up in Lawrence, Allen Fieldhouse, Memorial Stadium. I moved around a little as a kid, and Kansas City ended up being my home. I never really, developed that type of pride in it, but one thing that's undeniable is that a ton of people in KC absolutely love it, and they take a lot of pride in being Kansas City born and raised, and a lot of people will proudly wear T-shirts in Lawrence displaying their LFK pride, and if you know what that means, I'm not explaining it, but and I know that Ottawa doesn't have the size, population, resources of a Kansas City or even of a Lawrence. But I think it's something incredibly important for people to realize going forward, the importance of some of the things that are starting to happen in this town. The Teen Park immediately comes to mind. That's going to be an incredibly unique and wonderful thing, especially for a city this size. What do teens have available for them right now in Ottawa without driving somewhere else? For the most part, and maybe this is me being out of touch with the teenage community because I'm in my 30s, but as far as I can tell, especially as soon as summer hits, they walk around town mostly aimlessly, and sure, some are involved in activities, and that takes up some of their time, and some pay their $2 and go play basketball down at the Goppert Building. Some might go to the skate park. But in their downtime, there's very little to do other than just wander around, maybe sit at the gazebo in City Park on their cell phone. I see that a lot. And sure, it's better to be out in the fresh air than getting high in the basement or something, but how are they going to develop any lasting sense of pride in their town if they see it as being indifferent to them, or even worse, as an impediment to their doing something bigger with their life as they get older? So the Teen Park, I think, is a huge step. I'm glad to see it slowly but surely being funded and being developed, and it's not just going to stay in the theoretical stages. It really is happening and is being developed. Also happy to see the effort to spice up the downtown area. I think that idea of a river walk sounds fantastic to me. Just about any city you go to with a river running through it has some sort of feature built around the river, and I think that's a great opportunity to develop sort of a defining feature for the city, something that people can think of when they think of Ottawa. Really, the closest we have to that right now is the old courthouse, and it's cool. I like the old courthouse, but it is a 150-year-old building, and it's not necessarily a feature that's going to attract people. It's not necessarily going to be something that's going to help define the city for its residents or any potential residents. Proximity Park and expanding business opportunities is important, but that's really more the pragmatic side of developing and expanding the city and the area. So what else is there that Ottawa can do, and what maybe can instill more of a lasting sense of pride for people growing up in Ottawa that can help the city develop, not just in terms of growing in population and size, but also as a community. And we'll go ahead and wrap up the show with that after this final break. You are listening to Your Town here on KOFO 1220 and 103.7 FM.
Your Town with David Potter returns on KOFO after this. Here's your exclusive KOFO Weather Center forecast.
Where can you find premium 93 octane fuel for your cycle, boat, or ATV? Ottawa BP and Car Wash on 23rd Street in South Ottawa.
Today, mostly sunny, the high 84. Tonight, mostly clear, the low 63. Tomorrow, a 30% chance of showers and thunderstorms after 1 in the afternoon. Mostly sunny with a high of 83. Tomorrow night, partly clear, the low 65. Sunday, a 20% chance of showers and thunderstorms before 1 in the afternoon. Mostly sunny with a high of 87. 81 in Baldwin, 83 in Garnett. At the Ottawa Municipal Airport, wind is out of the southeast at 9. Relative humidity is 57%. Barometric pressure is trending downwards at 30 and 2/100ths of an inch of mercury. It's sunny and 81 at KOFO.
For all your computer services and repair, call Don Hardman, 418-2331.
The special today at El Sol Mexican Restaurant, quesadillas just $5.99. El Sol Mexican Restaurant, appetizers to combination plates, specialty dishes to steak platters, and for Los Niños, a fantastic kids menu. El Sol Mexican Restaurant, open Monday through Thursday, 11 till 9, Friday and Saturday, 11 till 10, Sunday, 11 till 3, at 210 South Main Street in Ottawa. Find them on Facebook and Twitter and online at OttawaElSolMexicanRestaurant.com.
Are your data limits limiting your human potential? Dreams buffering. Do slow networks make your soul feel sluggish? Megabyte molasses. With Simple Mobile, you get truly unlimited high-speed data for just $50 a month. Bucks meaning dollars, not dear. If you want better wireless, the answer is simple. Simple Mobile.
Available at Kroger, Family Dollar, Best Buy, and other national retailers. Video typically streams at DVD quality. A month equals 30 days. Please refer always to the latest terms and conditions of service at simplemobile.com.
Check out the Groupon app where you can save up to infinity, theoretically speaking. Actually, you can save up to $100 a week on what you do every day. Suppose you save $10 on tacos and took that $10 and used it to get more great restaurant deals on Groupon, like Italian or Chinese. Pretty soon, you could save a ton. Brunch? Check Groupon. Dinner plans? Check Groupon. Hungry? Use the top-rated Groupon app to save up to $100 a week on what you do every day. Download the app and save. Groupon.
Your Town with David Potter returns on KOFO after this.
Power Service Diesel Additives deliver vital protection and maximum performance for your diesel. Your diesel requires specific technology. Here's what a first-time user had to say.
This is Dale Harris out of Roy, New Mexico. I was in Pueblo yesterday and having one of our trucks worked on. The man suggested I use some of your diesel clean on the way home, and my God, you talk about giving some power back to that old truck, it did.
Power Service. It's just for diesels. Find Power Service Diesel Clean at auto and farm and ranch stores nationwide.
You can't get any fresher than your own vegetable garden. Right now at the Home Depot, 1 gallon Bonnie veggies and herbs are not only as fresh as you can get, but you can get 3 of them for only $12. That's not only thinking green, that's saving green. So pass the salad and stop and smell the rosemary. It's easy. When you fill your cart with 1 gallon Bonnie veggies and herbs, 3 for just $12. Now at the Home Depot. More saving, more doing. Valid through July 12th, Continental U.S. only. See store for details.
Your home for Kansas City Royals baseball in East Central Kansas is KOFO. Home and away, you can hear all the action in 2017 on 103.7 FM and 1220. Brought to you by our many game sponsors and title sponsor Beckman Motors.
Tonight, it's the Royals and the defending American League champion Cleveland Indians at Kauffman Stadium. Join us for all the action. Our coverage begins at 6:30 on the Royals Radio Network.
Don't miss Royals baseball on KOFO.
It's Your Town with David Potter on 103.7 FM and 1220 KOFO.
And welcome back. It is Your Town, and I am David Potter here on KOFO 1220 and 103.7 FM. Wrapping up the show here, and what we've been discussing today is, I'll start it off by talking about some of the recent success in Ottawa University's sports programs and maybe the lack of community engagement with those programs, and even the high school programs, which have been successful this year as well, and how that ties into maybe some lack of identity and really some centralized town pride that exists or at this point doesn't really maybe exist to the extent that it could, that could really go about helping the city. And like I said right before the break, Proximity Park is great. It's going to bring more businesses and more jobs to the area. That's going to put more revenue into the city. It's going to bring more people to the city. But again, that's really the more structural element of growing the city of Ottawa. But there's another side of it, and that's really developing it as a community. And it's these ideas, these unique ideas, like the park for teens that they're building with zip lines and a river walk, or I've also heard I know a popular idea at those I can't think of the word. It was a word I'd never heard of. The charrettes they held for ideas on developing downtown Ottawa. Another idea that I heard was big at those was turning the downtown Main Street area into more of an attraction and expanding the sidewalks and really making that more of a big deal, kind of like a Mass Street in Lawrence. Those are the things that give a city an identity. Something they can point to. Something you could put in a snow globe and look at, and that anyone who's been to the city would know that that's representative of Ottawa, or something you could put on the flag. Right now, the flag, I believe, is the old courthouse. And, again, like I said in the last segment, I like the old courthouse. I like old buildings, but it's still an old building. And it's not something that the city can rally around and call their logo or anything like that. And I'm not saying that there isn't any town pride here, that it does exist. It's just not as widespread as you see in some other smaller communities, to the point where, high schools and colleges with the name Ottawa right there on their jerseys, having major success right in our own backyard. And collectively, it's not really even a topic of discussion for most people. And so I would say that that's a problem, or at least indicative of a problem. So, I started by talking about sports, but it's not just an issue of sports. If you develop that town pride, more people show up to events, whether those are football games or shows, arts festivals, things like that. I believe they've had to suspend the Swan Arts Festival for a couple of years, or at least for this year, to try and regroup. And I think with a stronger sense of community, maybe those things start to thrive a little more, and it just sort of grows on its own. But for right now, I don't mean to spend the show dragging Ottawa through the mud by any means. Again, I've lived here for about 11 years. I wouldn't have stayed 11 years if there weren't aspects of it that I enjoy. I think there's the base and the bedrock of a great city and a great community here, and I think, fortunately, I think that is the direction we're moving in. All these things take time. You can't just come up with an idea like the teen park is, and just put it there overnight. Same thing if they end up going with trying to build a river walk downtown. You can't just install that, and nor will that just immediately have some huge blossoming effect on the community. But the more things like that can be put in Ottawa, especially as it grows, and as we get things like Proximity Park coming that create more jobs, bring more people, more diversity, more everything, then things like I keep going back to the teen park and the Riverwalk as the two main things, but there are tons of other opportunities that can be explored, and all of those can help contribute to a town identity. And I think that's something that might be the last thing sort of standing in the way of Ottawa going from a nice town of about 13,000 people in Kansas to something that's a little more recognizable to other places around the area, to where anyone from Lawrence or Kansas City has at least heard of Ottawa because of the neat things they're doing there. And fortunately, I think we've got some really great people in leadership around here in Franklin County and in Ottawa, and I think that's the way that things are headed. But it's good to see. I'm David Potter. This is your town.
Here's the latest from ABC News. I'm Daria Albinger. The head of the Environmental Protection Agency says the U.S. isn't out of the Paris Climate Change Accord for good. Administrator Scott Pruitt.
Exiting Paris does not mean disengagement. In fact, the president said yesterday that Paris represents a bad deal for this country. It doesn't mean that we're not going to continue the discussion.
House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi disagrees.
What happened yesterday on the climate issue is an embarrassment to our country. It should be an embarrassment to him personally.
The decision also prompting a backlash today from business leaders.
Apple's Tim Cook called the president's decision wrong for our planet. GE's Jeff Immelt said industry must now lead and not depend on government. Elon Musk of Tesla and Bob Iger of ABC News parent Disney resigned from the president's Economic Council. The move found support among coal executives. Robert Murray of Ohio-based Murray Energy said President Trump is supporting America's uncompromising values, saving coal jobs.
ABC's Aaron Katursky. The Labor Department says employers added just 138,000 jobs last month. That was far fewer than expected. J.J. Kinahan, chief market strategist at TD Ameritrade, says the May report often fails expectations because of seasonal hiring.
The headline number is even lower than the lowest range, really, of expectations. So it looks ugly.
The jobless rate dropped to 4.3%. A judge has sentenced former Penn State University President Graham Spaniard to 2 months in jail and 2 months house arrest for failing to alert authorities to a 2001 allegation against now ex-assistant football coach Jerry Sandusky. Sandusky is now convicted in doing